Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take on the back of a staggering announcement that President Biden is no longer standing for re-election. No one thought that President Biden should have stood for re-election after he won the first time. Certainly, nobody believed that he was going to be able to serve a full 4 years of a second term. That was becoming increasingly obvious to Biden himself because he saw what rank and file members of the Democratic Party were saying, how they were polling. The internal polls that the White House has been getting over the last 48 hours were devastating for Biden, not just a loss, but a landslide that would have led to the Democrats getting wiped out in the House and Senate as well, would probably lead to the Republicans ending the filibuster. Biden ultimately, a lot later than a lot of people wanted, but nonetheless, ultimately standing down, standing aside, strongly endorsing Kamala Harris, his vice president, for the presidential nomination and to defeat Trump come November. It is certainly a very long way to go. People were saying it's late. We have 107 days to go left in this election. That's an eternity in U.S. politics. It is longer than most elections in democracy actually occur for the entire campaign. And so, I mean, if you look at that, look at just how much might happen in a race where Trump and Biden have been historically both very unpopular, both seem to be far too old and unfit to serve as president for another term. Biden, the last numbers we saw on that were 74% of American voters saying that he was unfit to serve for another 4 years because of his age and increasing frailty. 49% of Americans said that about Trump. Now, it's worse for Biden, but if Biden wasn't in the race, for Trump, that would be the worst that we'd ever seen. And of course, now Biden isn't in the race and Trump is, which means that his age, his frailty, his incoherence when he makes statements, that is suddenly a big issue. It is immediately his largest vulnerability, even after the extraordinary ability of Trump to stand up and put his fist in the air and say, fight, fight, fight after an assassination attempt, a huge thing. But suddenly, yet another piece of unprecedented history in the U.S., this one in favor of the Democrats. I'd like to say this is a good day in U.S. politics in the sense that it shows a level of selflessness from President Biden, that he was unwilling ultimately to put himself personally and his ego ahead of that of the country, which recognized, and he recognized that this was going to be a disaster. No one had the ability to force him. They pressured him. They embarrassed him. They showed him facts. But ultimately, if Biden decided that he wasn't going to go, no one could have forced him. And of course, that's exactly the case for Trump as well. And, you know, you'll remember that after the 2020 election, when everyone in the Republican Party was saying, you got to stop this, you got to stand down, that's absolutely not what Trump was prepared to do. He puts himself above the party, above the country, and has done so consistently. I mean, you know, if you think about the vice presidents in these cases, the 45th president, Trump, threatened the life of his vice president in a last-ditch effort to hold on to power back on January 6th in 2021. The 46th president ended his campaign and strongly endorsed his vice president for the good of the country. It would be hard to see a more dramatic contrast between two old white men in political power in the United States. One, America's Nero, holding on for himself no matter what the consequences. The other, America's Cincinnatus. They are not the same. And as a consequence, the U.S. now has a much more competitive political race. I do believe that over the next month, the Democrats will not just dominate headlines, and they've done that a lot with Biden's unfitness, but also have energy and enthusiasm, and that they have not had, and they haven't had for a very long time. That is certainly an advantage for them. I think that Kamala Harris will do much better if the election nomination process is at least somewhat competitive. Now, I personally don't think that Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer, who are seen to be the most well-known and competitive candidates, potential candidates outside of Kamala Harris, I don't think they'll run. With Biden now having fully endorsed his vice president, with Kamala wanting that endorsement, I think that they will wait. They'll bide their time. They will support Harris, and they'll wait themselves until 2028. But I do think that others will decide to declare. I don't know who they'll be, but I think there will be some. And I think it's interesting that former President Obama did not endorse Harris. He said very strongly positive things about Biden, but he said that the process needs to be open and play out. And I think that is not just a knife to Harris, not at all. I think it is a Obama recognition that for all of her advantages, she has vulnerabilities, and she will benefit from a process that doesn't look like the political machine has just decided that they're going to anoint her, that there's not going to be a primary process. So there needs to at least be some level of competition, a race that she has to show that she can win. And, conceivably, she could implode during that process, and then maybe she isn't the nominee, though I would bet a lot at this point that she is going to be. Where do we go from here? We're in unprecedented times. As much as this is a better day for U.S. democracy, and there haven't been many, it is also true that this is a democracy that remains in crisis. We were less than a fraction of a second away from former President Trump getting killed, getting assassinated. And if that had happened, I have no doubt that we would have had George Floyd-style riots across the country, but with a lot more guns. And I think that there is a lack of appreciation of just how close this country was to a level of political chaos, social instability, and violence. And we have 3 more months plus before this election where both the Democrats and the Republicans still believe that if the opponent wins, that it is going to be the destruction of democracy. Biden's standing down did not change Trump's view of that or his supporters' view of that. And the Democrats still feel the same way about Trump. And they feel the same way about Trump even after his near assassination. There's been no unifying of the country on the back of that. And there'll be no unifying of the country on the back of Biden stepping down. But there may well be a lot more unifying of the Democrats with perhaps a significant number of independents that show up. So very divided, deeply vulnerable over the coming months. We're going to be very busy, but it's nice on a Sunday to have something nice to say. And I will certainly say that to President Biden, someone that I have criticized a fair amount over the past months as he has deteriorated for not doing the right thing and standing down, that you, sir, have my appreciation as an American and, more importantly, as a citizen of this little planet here, for doing something that the world can take a little bit of inspiration from, and thinking of someone beyond yourself for your legacy, which looks better today than it did yesterday. That's it for me, and I'll talk to you all real soon.